It's 8 p.m. on Wednesday, the 24th of February, and this is the Big Stomp Live. I am the Raggedyman, and in the month when Netflix announced a movie a week, Disney announced Emma Stone in the controversial Joker remake, Perseverance established robot dominance on Mars, Stadia came and went in a cloud of your lawsuit, Jeff Bezos retired, spent more time with all the money ever. We found out that Bloodline 2 was still in development, and Tim Burton came back to the Addams Family. We have three of the finest monsters to stomp through the tastiest bits of geek culture. And in apparently an order, we have hello, Hugh. How are you?
Pretty good. Yourself?
I am very well. And we have the red-headed rambler. Hello, how are you?
Confused as to what you meant by, I was like, that introduction is looking at us.
Yes, still, I've done it every time in some variation, so get over it. And we have Harriett.
Hello.
Hello.
That's
And
the level today.
Also, hopefully, we have you, the wonderful members of the audience, who will be jumping in with amazing bits of commentary. Ooh, standard idea. Oh, we got a pink apple jam. That's awesome. And we got a red-headed. Oh God!
It's like we're gonna run out. I'm like, hello, I'm here.
Right. Okay. Ignore me. I'm the host. They always ignore me. Anyway. Something. I made some bad jokes. Something. I've introduced everyone. Where am I in the script? Oh yes, you said that.
I don't know. We have a script.
I have a script. So now, before it all gets completely out of control, and before we head off to raid Disney Star for the 18-rated Muppet Show movies, let's get started. And the first person we have is Lizzie.
Hello. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Can I get a copy of that, Andrew?
Yeah, sure.
I want to use that for history class.
That's beautiful.
He told me because I said to him I didn't have a particular image in mind. Go do whatever, and he's like, I have an image, and I'm like, does it involve crying baby scalpers? And he's like, you'll see, and I'm like, oh dear,
It's magnificent. It's absolutely magnificent.
So yeah, my story is basically, everyone knows it's incredibly hard to get hold of a PS5 at the moment because scalpers are using bots to basically snaffle them all up. Well, the scalpers have replied and said that they don't. The scalpers really don't appreciate the bad press, and we're getting the entirely wrong end of the sticks, and they have no regrets over selling a sort of time of publishing of this article 3,500 PS5 consoles, probably more now. Like, yeah. And there is a quote from a guy called Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
So this co-founder of the scalping advice group called The Lab, goes by Jordan, had strong feelings about he and his group were being portrayed in the media. Jordan insists that scalpers are completely misunderstood and their negative public opinion is completely unjustified. There seems to be a lot of bad press on this incredibly valuable industry, and I do not feel that it is justified, as we are all acting as is middlemen for a limited quantity item. I mean, middleman is not the right word there. He then goes on to say, essentially, every business resells their products. Tesco's, for example, buys milk from farmers for 26p or so per litre and sells it on for upward of 70p per litre. No one ever seems to complain to the extent as they are currently doing towards ourselves. Let's unpack that, shall we?
Do you want to use a shotgun?
I mean, it's like, I'm sorry, like,
Wow.
scalping. It's like, won't somebody think of the scalpers?
I love the fact that the art interview is in Forbes. We've got into Forbes, for crying out loud.
Oh.
Like, the premier business magazine of the world is going,
Oh my God.
meet the guys who rip you off.
Yeah, I mean,
really?
we don't know anything about him except he goes by Jordan and is apparently the head of this
Yeah, and he has a
Say
partner
other-
called Reagan.
I agree with part of what he's saying in that that everyone resells or sells their product. Yes, that is true. But what he's doing is the equivalent of getting all the milk in the UK from
Yeah.
the shelves in all the stores in the UK and then selling it at £3 a pint because he bought all the milk everywhere. I don't quite think his analogy sustains any consideration.
Oh, it gets better.
That's
It gets better.
how.
Oh no.
He's like, so Jordan and Regan don't see themselves as the bad guys, insist that they're just helping people by giving them the chance to fleece other would-be gamers out of their cash. I mainly just try and help others now. That's all that really matters to me. The whole group came out as near the start of the first UK lockdown, and it makes me so happy that I can help people make some extra money for themselves.
Which
He's trying to justify himself as like a Robin Hood-esque type figure here. It's like, what? Dude, like, what are you smoking and can I have some, please?
I think that there is a valid point in this, kind of.
I don't think, like, keep
no,
digging
I
I'm just
out.
trying to find it.
I think it's interesting, and I think it's reasonable that we did have a lot of people. You know, there are a lot of people who have lost income. So, if you are able to flip an item like that, that will give you money when you have none.
Yeah, but they're flipping it for, like, the average PS5.
We're talking about an industrial scale here.
Yeah, I mean, the average PS5 retails for £450. They are flipping them for upwards from £700.
Oh, the hot items they're flipping for 100%. They're putting 100% on. But what I'm saying is, if it was an individual bought one and then sold it on, but we're talking about people who are getting 50, 100, 150 of these items.
Yeah,
and
like
doing it. We're talking about industrial scale, effectively.
Yeah, they're setting up bots on websites that are saying that, oh yeah, we're getting a restock of the PS5, and they literally buy every single PS5 in the first like 5 seconds because the bots are faster than humans.
Did you hear about Argos?
Yes.
Do you want to tell the joke or shall I?
You tell it, because I can't tell it
Because
without
when
laughing.
you said getting them all as soon as they go on sale, that's not technically true. Because Argos, they got them before they went on sale because they skimmed the site and someone had uploaded them before. Someone had uploaded the section of the site where you could buy them before it officially went live. So they bought them all the day before.
Yeah. The January 25th Cook Group Express Notify found a way to buy PlayStation 5 units from UK retailer Argos a full day before the official stock drop. It took Argos a while before they shut down the loophole.
Yeah. So,
I mean, on the Facebook group, they have claimed it's made its users more than £2 million in profit to date.
Jesus.
Yeah.
And this article that I'm getting that from was published actually of November last. So it's God knows what the like number is now. I couldn't find it, but mostly because I didn't want to go digging into this cesspit of a thing any further than I have. But it's the same. But the problem is that because the supply is so limited of all electronics, it's not just the PS5. The iPhone 12 is really limited as well because there's a chip supply issue. It's the same thing with all the graphics cards because there's like, and I think it's wrong of them to take advantage of people's desperation because, let's be honest, like gamers are, we like our toys. We like to get our new toy. I mean, I personally don't buy new consoles like the first year they come out because I like them to get all the bugs out first. But that's a personal preference and like not, if you want to buy it on launch date, go nuts, have fun with that. But this is just wrong on so like a deep fundamental level. It's because you're getting people who say have a child who really wants the PS5, not going to get into the issue I have with people buying their 12-year-old a £450 electronic, but if you can afford it and that's what your child wants, and go nuts. But you have these basically criminals, because while technically what they are not doing is against the law in the UK, though apparently there are like things in Parliament to try and change that. No, because scalping electronics is not covered under the scalping legislation for things like theatre tickets.
There was legislation that went through 2 years ago which made entertainment tickets is basically illegal to scalp, and I believe that also put a thing in where sellers had to put in safeguards against scalping. Douglas Chapman has put in the gaming hardware automated purchase and resale bill, which he's trying to get put through. However, he himself says he doesn't expect it to pass, but he is he's a member. It's a private members bills from an SNP, so he's not got a huge amount of faith on it going through. But it is something that he thinks needs to be addressed, and it is. Having had a look through it, it is quite broad-reaching in that it's basically trying to stop automatic purchase with intent to resell.
Yeah,
so it'll cover everything.
Yeah, it's just stopping the bots, basically. It's not saying you can't resell your PlayStation 5 if you buy one and decide you don't want it, but it's just trying to stop people doing it on this scale. Like, that's the whole point. It's the scale of this is just... I don't remember this on any other console. But then I don't remember there being such a shortage on any new console release before this.
Yeah.
The issue is all major platforms have had that. So GPU sales... the NVIDIA brought out the 3000 series over the course of the last 12 months. Approximately 50,000 of those have been sold on eBay and other sites. So the scalpers have made approximately 15.2 million, and eBay and similar sites have made approximately 6.8 million. So there's one of the reasons this is still going on.
I mean, people sort of I've seen a lot of people saying eBay should do something about it, but the whole point of eBay is it is an online marketplace that you can sell your stuff on. eBay can't, they don't know where that PS5 has come from. Okay, if you've got one seller who's selling 20 of them, you can maybe take a wild stab, but
even then you can't. He could know 20 people have sold them onto him because they didn't like it.
So
unwanted Christmas presents.
Yeah, I don't think it's up to eBay to police this. I don't know whose job it is to police this, because currently nobody's, because technically it's not illegal. It's just morally reprehensible. I mean, what about you? Did either of you want to get a PS5 and haven't been able to?
I want to, but like yourself, I'm waiting for a while. Because and also there's not really any games really out yet as such. But yeah, I've always had a thing that I've hated scalpers, because I used to collect wrestling figures, and the rarer they were, the more harder they would get. They would be queuing outside Toys R Us or Smiths and stuff like that, and just literally buying all the figures and then selling them for 3 times, probably 4 times the price, so like £20. And then if you wanted one figure, I remember one figure they couldn't get it into the UK, and the ones they did, they just pretty much gone. And then I think they were £150 just for one figure. So
I think
were these okay, the question is, were they limited edition products?
They weren't. It was just I think with Mattel and the UK, with some wrestling figure companies, they can't get the license, or they don't release them. Don't know why. It's just a thing that Mattel have done.
There has been chatter going around on this about the whole fandom's always had, and geek culture has always had scalping to a certain extent, someone going and buying up all the limited edition products. And so I was just asking because limited edition is limited edition, but that's the producers making a false short supply. Whereas this is the global problem. I mean, as you were saying earlier, this is hitting everything. There's been a Xbox, a PS5, a Switch, a GPU, which there's a huge loss of production for all parts of the PC market. There's also just like cars. There's some cars aren't coming out quickly enough because they can't get the damn chips. So this is for industry down to consumer electronics. There's not the silicone.
Well, apparently, and again, this I don't know, but this guy has fairly credible sources that apparently some of the blame may be able to be put on former President Trump's trade war with China, because
really,
yeah, apparently a lot of manufacturing is done in mainland China. Who knew? And last year, the Trump administration placed restriction on the country's biggest chip manufacturer, Semiconductor Manufacturing International, SMIC, and they were prevented from getting more advanced chip making equipment, which is preventing the company from running at full capacity. It's like, oh my god, it's like Trump's coming back to haunt us again.
There's also the some of this was also, and I think to an extent people should have, because there were complaints about webcams, because the price of webcams shot up.
Yep. Because
everything went on lockdown and no one had any backup supplies, because the demand for them, very organically, the demand went flying up.
Yeah, suddenly we're all stuck in our houses. We want electronics.
Yeah, people didn't have the units to sell. So many people down the supply chain were shoving extra pennies on because they were a very hot commodity. The cost went up. Which is a bit different, and some people were making money by buying a bunch and then selling them on, which is kind of scalping, but that's because of a natural an unforeseen occurrence.
You're talking about supply and demand. You're talking about the fundamentals.
Yeah, there is some of this is supply and demand.
Yeah, but I think really, what it all comes back to is Lizzie's point about scale and about the use of bots. And I think that's really the distinction here. The fact that the regular old school suppliers and shops have not been able to keep up with the degree of security needed on their web portal.
Nvidia absolutely screwed the pooch.
Yeah.
When they did their launches, they did 2 launches. They said they were going to have a massive increase in security on the second one, and it went worse.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think this is part of the problem. Everyone's put all this money into one area of their business and not another. And actually, if we're all going to be locked in, stuck at home and buying online, then the online side of things now needs to ramp up very, very quickly. What you're seeing here is the worst case scenario to a certain degree with regards to a particular product. I mean, you rewind to lockdown last year, a similar issue, I think, although obviously it didn't happen at the same scale, was people buying supermarket slots delivery and then selling them on Facebook groups, which is morally reprehensible, but also people were justifying it, saying I'm just meeting a demand. But same argument as this guy here. But in terms of the PS5, I think you guys have got a really good point. It is so distinct. I've been looking around my office, looking at products from all over the world, because obviously I've been collecting stuff for years, and I used to make a point of trying to go out of my way to get things from abroad. Harriet's point about things that are produced in a smaller number somewhere else, and what we can't do and don't have access to in England. And I still can't think of anything quite like this PS5 incident. Over 30, 40 years, I just can't think of anything it's been so spectacularly. Wow.
I mean, think in regards to previous large console launches, I used to work for a very large game retailer in the UK, and we would have pre-orders. People could come in, put down a deposit for their Xbox or their PlayStation, whichever version we were selling, pre-ordering at the time, and it was limited to 1 or 2, depending. You were allowed to pre-order 1, and we had a system. And people would actually physically have to come into the store and get it. You couldn't order it online. I mean, you could order it online to a certain extent for things like Amazon, but most of them were sold through brick and mortar stores. And obviously with lockdown and all that can't happen, which is why I think the scale is so huge, because most of these consoles originally would have been sold in stores. Whereas now, because they're all online, as you said, Hugh, the websites just weren't built for it. They were like, because you think about it, if you're a scalper and you've got a bot, and in the old days, you might get 10 maybe with your bot. But now, because like, say this company's getting 300,000, all of those can go to bots now because they're all online. You physically cannot go to a store and pick one up. And it's just it's brand new times, the new normal, everyone.
I think the other galling thing with it is we are used to a first wave of scarcity. So when the Xbox new thing, or the PS Shiny, or the Nintendo Look at This comes out, we are used to, when they first hit the stores, we're used to them being in hard supply. You couldn't find the sods anywhere. We're used to a period before the next shipment comes in where they are available at ridiculous resale. But we're then used, so we're talking about, I'll ballpark it, say a 6 week to 8 week window where they're gone, and if you want them before the new batch turns up, you got to pay over the odds. I think the most galling thing this time around is that it's happened once. You've had your first wave and that just all disappeared. You had your second wave. We're now on like the third wave of the PS5 and other things turning up and just being gone. There's no it's relentless.
Well, I mean, as I say, in the old days, like, we would be told exactly how many units our store was getting. Like, Xbox 360, you are getting 100 units on launch day. That's it. That's all you can sell. And most of those they're pretty much every single one went on pre-orders. And then because it was a massive launch, we'd have like midnight launches so people could come and buy their thing at like 1 minute past midnight. And it's like,
but you also knew when the next wave was coming, so you could tell people it's coming in the next wave. And it was literally you waited 8 weeks to not have to ruck through a bunch of sweaty fanboys to get one. Which, trust me, that's worth waiting a month. Not to.
Yeah, or like a lot of the times we'd be told, okay, you'll get on launch day, you get 100 units, and then, as you say, about 6 weeks later, you should get 100 more units. So then, occasionally, we would do a second pre-order list, but now it's just. Oh yes, the Cabbage Patch Girl, the dolls, Pink Apple Jam. Those were creepy.
I was working in retail when Furbies came out. That was.
Ooh.
Do not talk to me about those demonic things.
No. Seriously, I had someone put a large quantity of cash in my hand to get me a Furby. They just went, and I'm looking at this wodge of notes, and I'm like, and no, didn't do it, because they did it just outside the door, and the whole thing was glass, and I'm like, you're completely new to this bribery thing.
I mean,
it's just that away from the gag, me making a gag about it now, the intensity of that situation, it was frightening for me.
I mean, I worked for Game when the pink and blue Nintendo DSs came out with the Nintendogs. I was physically assaulted 3 times by mothers because we ran out of stock on the pink ones. We had blue ones, but their little girl didn't want a blue one. She wanted a pink one. Like, we had to call security for me personally 3 times. For my other colleagues, I think for the entirety of that Nintendogs release, we probably had about 15 assaults on staff that had us calling the centre security because they wanted the pink one, not the blue one.
Did any of them have the decency to try and bribe you?
One woman tried to bribe me, but she tried to bribe me. She's like, "I'll give you anything. You can have my kids. You can have my dog." She was like, she even went, "You can have my husband." And I looked at him, and he looked at me, and we were just like, "No."
I love the fact that you can have my kids, even though I'm buying this for them. But you can have them.
Right? I think she meant the one in the pram. Probably wasn't old enough to care.
Organ sell. Why were Furbies popular? Furbies were popular because they were an interactive toy, and because they were very hyped, and because they were very popular, and because they were that year's thing, and they were new, and they were exciting, and for the market they were aimed at, they were brilliant. However,
I put a Furby in the microwave once.
I once spun 70 quid in a charity hat to be able to execute a Furby with a fiery axe. So
I'll be honest with you, putting one in a microwave outside and while it's on and listening to it slowly die is just
yeah.
You guys have seen Legends of Tomorrow and the whole thing with their version of the Furby creature and the way it's become a running gag over the series.
Yes,
I haven't. The other answer to why were Furbies popular? Russian psyops, because they end up getting banned by the CIA.
They're banned from the Pentagon.
They fixed that problem. Back slightly on course. I mean, the people doing the scalping are going to justify whatever they're doing. People are going to see a buck and they're going to go for it. The question, how do you guys feel this can be dealt with, though? Because who needs to deal with it? Because
I think it's one of those very complex issues that it's not one person's job to deal with it. I think the companies with the websites need to up their security so bots can't work. Basically, they also probably need to limit orders. I don't know how. Again, website design is not my strong point. Neither is website security. I think there also needs to be legislation from the government to say, okay, like scalping concert tickets, this is illegal, and if we catch you, we will throw something very heavy and large like a book at you. Yeah. And
legally speaking, the person who makes the console, as soon as they put it out the door, as soon as they got it manufactured and moved on, they have no legal responsibility for what happens to it next.
I don't think Sony can be blamed for this because they couldn't have foreseen the chip shortage. Because Sony was going to have a release date, probably like every other console release they've ever done, where this is our first wave. So if you don't get the first wave, the next wave will be coming out again 6 to 8 weeks later. Then supply and demand will diminish, and then people can get one more easily. But I think it's because these people are just... It's the sheer audacity of this that they're like, okay, fine, scalpers are buggers, and they should be probably tarred and feather in a town square. But it's the fact that they're like, we don't deserve the negative press. We're just being business people, and you're all being so mean to us. And I could just imagine them. Do you remember the "Leave Britney Alone" kids? That's how I imagine them having this conversation with Forbes. It's like, would you leave us alone?
Like in the corner, I'm terribly stomping their feet.
Rubbing their eyes with pound notes.
50 pound notes.
Hopefully they'll get covered from it. Okay, one quick comment from the audience. Would it be so difficult to lock console sales based on credit debit card number? Yes, that would be a nightmare because you'd have to open up the console and store the credit card numbers on it, and you would then be locking it to that card, and that would
some people use
a
PayPal.
nightmare. There's a huge bunch of security issues. You'd basically have to put the credit card in the console.
To work it. It's in credit card slot.
It would. A nice idea, but locking it out that way would be hard. How much do you guys blame the buyers? This is the question I'm going to have, because if you don't need, I mean the. Yes, fair point.
Chat, you're doing well. I love it.
Well made. Fair point. Well made. Okay, I'm going to leave GPUs out of this because the GPU issue is like the NVIDIA cards and that. A lot of it is people using them for cryptocurrency, for crypto mining, where it's worth them buying a hyperinflated thing because they think they can make it off the cryptocurrency.
I was reading something where like the chip again they're going to find, if they find that your graphics card is running Bitcoin farming, they're going to make your graphics card work at like half power.
Nvidia have announced that they've got a two-prong attack, which is terrible. The 3060 card it's going to have a software block in it, so that it will only be able to do cryptocurrency mining at 50% capacity. That's a software block, which means it'll be breached.
Yeah, I give him 10 minutes.
Simple as that. Because someone's going to turn around and go, I'll give 10 bitcoins to the first person to break this problem. And it'll just suddenly disappear in a puff of code.
I mean,
their other plan is they're going to release a crypto processing unit, which is basically a graphics card without the graphics ports. And this is going to help the shortage in graphics cards by turning half the silicon they would use to make graphic cards into not graphic cards. Yeah, so let's completely ignore Nvidia's really bad plans, which aren't going to work.
I don't understand half of what you just said, but I'm like, even I can see that's a bad idea.
Yeah. Anyway.
You were saying, like, do we blame the actual people buying these and selling them on? They are culpable in some form. I have to say that. But I think the real people who need to be gone after are things like Jordan and Regan and the lab, like these people who are setting up these scalping. Because think about it. You lost your job in lockdown. You've got bills to pay. You've got kids to feed. And these people are offering you a way to make a very amazingly good amount of money with, I don't know how much it costs to join their group and get the bot and how much you have to pay into them or anything. I haven't looked that far into it. But like, if you're desperate,
good money regardless.
Yeah, if you're desperate for money, and they nobody was hiring in lockdown, and you've got like financial obligations that you have to meet. Can you really blame the people for taking what appears to be a really easy way and quick way to make money?
And the people buying them are people who can afford to spend twice as much on it.
That's what I think it comes down to in the end. If the people were not willing to spend that money in the first place, we would not have anything to discuss here.
Yeah, but like little Tarquin or Emelina needs her PS5, otherwise she'll be heartbroken. And it's like,
I mean, the fact that we're waiting. We're not going to, like Harriet, in this house, we're not going to get one until Kim says there's enough games for it. She never buys a console first, within the first year usually of it. She waits for all the kinks to be ironed out, the tech to be sorted, and for the franchises she likes to start turning up. And then she invests. I'm trying to remember how long we waited before we got the PS3 and then the PS4, but it was long enough. And that's how we do. That's how she does things, and I'm more than happy for that. I mean, personally, I don't even believe in being up to date. Ever since I think it was in the 90s, I think it was on Disinfo TV. I saw an interview with the hacker collective Loft in Boston, and they were talking about how their software is always up to date, but their hardware is literally out of the skips from companies that are doing a mass replacement of kit, because they said the hardware doesn't need to be. They can be we can be 1 to 2 generations behind the curve and still do what we do. And I was like, wow, that's really that's a really amazing philosophy, and I've operated like that ever since. But yeah, you're right. For the people for whom this is a status thing, it's a value thing. It's like some of the pupils I teach who, now that we do remote teaching, I can see the quality of the kit that they have and the gaming chairs that they have, and you're like, okay, I know what you're getting for Christmas, clearly, and you kind of look, and that's not I'm not trying to put them down. That's fine. I live in a wealthy part of the country, and that's to be expected. But the fact that we expect it doesn't change your original starting point, I think, with regards to this, this whole idea that fundamentally the very notion of doing this is just wrong. It may be taking advantage of people not like us, and people who can afford to be taken advantage of in that context. But ultimately, I mean, I didn't like paying for scalp tickets as a gig, going to a gig years and years and years ago when I did, but I did it because I was desperate and I really wanted to see that band that badly. And I regard myself as having got my money's worth. right?
Yeah,
but that is a personal choice. I don't advocate. You're right about people having bills to meet and so forth, but we're not all out there busy breaking the law to do or breaking moral codes to do it. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but
in regards to scalping gig tickets, like I don't agree with that, but like I could understand, like you say, you're a fan of the band and a gig is like a one-off thing, like it's not gonna happen, like okay, it might happen again somewhere else, but you might not be able to get to it. But there's something like the PS5, it's like if you can't afford it now because the scalpers are getting it, then just wait. Like this, Sony will fix the chip issue. Sony will fix the supply issue, and it's going to stop being my money maker for the scalpers. Yeah, because it's not something that's going to. It's not like a limited edition. It's going to waft away on thing. But like reading the thing on Forbes with the sort of interview with these guys who set these groups up, like especially their reply to "We don't deserve all this. You're being mean." Is it just me, or do they seem incredibly juvenile?
Yeah.
Like I would not be surprised if it came out that they're like 21 and they've never really left. Like, you know, they're young.
They're not offering any benefit, and yeah, all right. They had the idea to do it, and technically, yeah, all right. They're gambling on it. And all that, but they're sods. They know they're being sods. They're not. The fact they're moaning about it, it's like, okay, I have some sympathy for the guy for one of them that got robbed at gunpoint by it, apparently, because he could have got shot. But I don't have sympathy for people going, "Oh, I'm glad you didn't get shot. By the way, you're a jerk for doing this in the first place."
Yeah, I mean, like, they have received, some of the scalpers have received death threats, and I don't think that is okay. Like, at the end of the day, this is a fancy electronic. It is not something that is needed to live. It's not like the toilet paper shortage when lockdown first happened, or like the selling of delivery slots from supermarkets or anything like that. This is a luxury item that, seriously, can you, like, instant gratification, I think, is possibly the problem here, in that nobody has patience to wait for things, because we've got things, you know, Netflix is on demand, Amazon Prime will deliver things to you sometimes the same day, you know, you can get your pizza in 30 minutes or less. I think people have lost the art of patience. It's kind of like when people were complaining that WandaVision was so slow because they were only releasing an episode a week, and I'm like, that's how television used to be. Like, do you not like, you had to wait a week, you didn't used to get the whole thing at once. But like, I mean, maybe it's because we're all old and, you know, bitter, but like
no
I like patience. Like, I don't understand that these people can't just go, okay, well, I'll just wait.
The simple thing is, it's like with the loop. It's like with the loo paper thing. Yeah,
but I mean, okay, I'm old, bitter, and spoilt. I'll admit that, but like, I can still wait for things.
Yeah, it's like with the loo roll thing. People did go in, people did exploit the market, but then the manufacturers fixed the problem, and people were left with huge amounts of loo roll they couldn't sell, and a number of shops turned around and went, "No, we are not letting you bring it back." They put a limit on the amount of loo roll you could return, and people lost their shit over it. Pardon my phrasing. Lost their shit over it. The same thing with PS5s. Okay, if collectively we don't buy these damn things, you get Jackass of Essex sitting there with 50 PS5s.
Build a
that's a lot of machine that he's got to keep in perfect condition.
Yeah.
To then, once everything equalizes, sell it on eBay for how much he spent on it. That's it. I mean, that's all we have to do. All we have to do to beat these sods is not buy them.
But I mean, can I just say there's one other thing that interests me about this with regard to the point about age and getting an interview in a big magazine and all of this. You know, in England, on form tonight. On form tonight.
On point.
Chat, I love you.
Chat is doing well tonight.
Can I just say that I'll come back to Mark's point in a moment. I just think that there's an interesting narrative here that I feel like especially this happens particularly in England, but I feel like modern America with their notion of the hustle has really bought into it. This is a country where we had eight series about a bunch of grifters in Minder. And we had Lovejoy, and we have a history of rogues who, rip off the right people.
And Horses.
Only Fools and Horses is a good one.
All of this stuff, right? This is a cult. There is a cultural aspect to this. There's a reason you in your joking title, Andrew. You use Essex. There's a reason all of it that happens. That's not just random. And I feel like these guys see themselves in that role, and the problem is, it is just utter BS. It really is just utter BS. If you were getting these PS5s and then you were going around donating them to the Great Ormond, I'd be like, right, now you're Robin Hood.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're like, oh, we do a lot for charity. Please back this up with actual proof. But,
Andrew's just spot on there.
Yeah, I know. But I slightly was upset when I saw the Forbes article about them and all the other articles in these big tech because it's the age-old rule of the internet. You don't feed the trolls. By giving them that print space. Okay, it's not print space anyway, but by giving them that sort of airspace, it's making them. They're becoming more visible.
I personally think it's making them look worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's making them look worse, but it's also making it also might make other people go, "Hey, if they can do it, why can't I?"
Well, yeah. I mean,
let's hope they burn as well. We've got a question from the peanut gallery. What are your collective feelings on the chaotic good energy that some people did with the suggestion to arrange to meet a scalper at a kids' hospital, then also phone a kids' hospital to let them know that a generous benefactor was showing up with PS4s?
I mean, I love the idea in principle, but I think in reality it wouldn't work that well because the scalper what's the scalper going to do? Oh, they're going, oh, thank you for your donation. I'm not donating these. F off and leave. These are not nice people doing it. If, as you say, if they were buying them if they were buying them and donating them to children's hospitals or youth centres, if there are any still left, or anything like that, I'd be, go right on, stick it to the man. But this is not that. This is capitalism in the worst possible way.
Hugh, what do you think of the idea?
Given what I said earlier about Great Ormonds, I certainly appreciate the idea. As Pink Applejam says, if it's true, it's amazing. But I agree with Lizzie. I don't trust these guys. This is the difference between the TV shows I mentioned and reality. In the TV shows, at the end, they'd be like, "Oh, right, take it. I've been had myself. And then the episode ends, and we all go off and have a drink." Now I'm like, the reality. And I say this specifically. The thing I've been thinking about all through this conversation is the first time I ever got to talk to fan subbers when I was working in anime. And you actually got to meet some, and that was a very similar. Lizzie, shh. This was in Germany, I should point out. But it was a very similar experience. It was a very similar experience talking to people who thought they were doing something charitable, who were not interested in hearing about the financial consequences or the time consequences to licensing and all this sort of thing, and also people who thought they were brilliant when they'd only done 2 years of Japanese, and they're speaking to people who've done 5 and more. And having that conversation saying, "Oh, I know how good I am," kind of thing. And you're just like, yeah, right. I'm sorry, it's really simple for me. If the original creator isn't signing off what you're doing, then I don't buy it. But it just reminds me of that whole process, that whole cultural thing. I mean, Lizzie said this whole thing about immediacy and wanting it now. And in the peanut gallery, we're having that conversation about, before the internet, when you waited 2 years for a film to turn up, or from the States, or 6 months for TV to turn up, and you just the closest I ever got to beating that system was asking a friend who was in college in the States to tape Star Trek Next Gen. And then when I went back home to Switzerland and he came back home to see his parents, we swapped, he lent me tapes and I would lend him English stuff. But that was about it. There's none of this. This particular example we've been discussing today really does feel like this insane, intense confluence of all these things that have been happening for 20 years, and it's like this pinnacle moment. And I just wonder, where do these guys? I mean, does it even matter anymore? Like, these guys are going to make so much money now. Is this like a one-off thing, first of all? Second of all, this reminds me of what happens in investment anyway. People do this with shares. They just don't, it's just a different item that's being played with. And finally, the other thing this makes me think of is, the pirates, the fan subbers, they went legit in the end, right? They got hired as translators. Crunchyroll is a legit service. Now, for example, but I don't see this happening. I don't see these guys ever going, "Hey, you know what we could do really well? We'll turn into middlemen retailers." Yeah, no, it's not going to happen.
No,
this is just, if you'll pardon my language, this is just assholery of the first order writ large.
It's also
Harriet. Same question.
What for the
one we got from Dupenstein? Dupenstein. I'm going to go with Dupenstein.
It's a brilliant idea, but I'd be very worried in case, like you said, like these scalpers could be dangerous because all they're concerned about is money. And if they're not going to get money at the end of the day,
I'm gonna go with the theory that if you got the right person to do it, with a TV show, Joe, what's his name? Joe's Got Your Back. That guy.
I can imagine it though.
I can see it working if someone from a TV show did it and they had the cameras and they did it as you said you gave money, ring them up and go, hey, number one, you said you could supply these. Number two, you said you do things for children's charities. Let's meet up here. Yeah, that kind of. If you did it as if you cornered them. Then I could see it working, but yeah,
you just imagine the blurred faces and the really deep voices of the scalpers.
Right.
Oh, right. You mean this thing, Joe Lysitz?
Joe Lysitz. Joe's Got Your Back.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay.
I am going to roll this on me as we bait. I'm going to do some comments from the peanut gallery and then I'll roll it on because there's only so many ways we can say these people are parasites upon the art of mankind.
Yeah, I think this is one. I think this is one of those stories where we can all agree that this is wrong. We should not feel sorry for the scalpers. No. And if you do feel sorry for the scalpers, I have questions.
Yes, I'm going to leave a couple of comments. So, NVIDIA turned around and said they were having trouble with production because of the silicone issue. Nintendo turned around and said they were having trouble because of the silicone issue. Sony turned around and said it's difficult for us to increase production amid the shortage of semiconductor components. And Phil Spence, head of Xbox, said everything was fine.
Okay.
They're apparently producing them. It's really just down to physics and engineering. We're not holding back. We're building them as fast as we can. We have all the assembly lines going. So I think Xbox is going to carry on being a rare item because they've gone, everything's fine. A couple of comments. If anyone from the Peanut Gallery has any shots they want to get in, I'm going to slowly drag this out because we have a slight time delay. Where are we? I did see a guy who made money on GameStop's.
Yes, he was lovely.
Using it to donate. A lot of the GameStops and the Wall Street Bets guys have been doing that because the hardcore Wall Street Bets are basically mental. There is also, and I will say this again, you should get Doge because there are so many people with Dogecoin who have pledged that if it ever hits the almighty goal of $1 a Doge, they're going to donate huge amounts to dog charities. And because these are people who are early investors in Dogecoin, they mean it because they're basically mad. Here we go. Doppelstein, the only answer is we need to go to the one place untouched by capitalism, space. Yes.
Yeah, but who's trying to get us there?
Elon Musk. Oh wait, he's already done it.
Elon Musk kind of tainted it with all his commercialism.
How about the bottom of the ocean?
Space. Bottom of the ocean has been so tainted by capitalism. It's called It's called all the current problems. Decadan. Salute the station controller. I got an accidental refund from a PS5 from Amazon. I did not.
Yes, Tim Curry. Tim Curry reference Decadane, all for you.
Right.
Spice.
Okay, that's a Tim Curry reference. Right.
Just a little thing of
Final
why I
shot
was.
to you.
Well, just a little thing as to why I was dying when you were talking about the silicone. I have a friend who is a buyer for a sex toy company. And I realise it's probably an entirely different type of silicone, but apparently the sex toy industry has gone way up in during lockdown, and they're not having any trouble sourcing silicone.
And talking of sex toy silicone,
hello,
I'm going to hell.
That's the best segue you have ever done, Andrew. Best
Andrew,
segue ever.
Andrew, if you're going to hell, we're all coming with you.
So,
I've got the
this
sofa
one
ready.
is Harriett with the improvement of adaptations. Someone mentioned something about Mortal Kombat. Or have I got the wrong one?
Come on,
How
play
can
the
I-
theme tune.
How can I carry on after
We can't
that?
DMCA.
I know.
Oh my god. Yeah, so last week the new Mortal Kombat trailer dropped, the new one that's going to be coming out in April. And oh my god, it's amazing. In my personal opinion anyway. And I'm a huge gamer, so we have had some good movies adapted from games and we've had some questionable ones.
Name one.
Oh god.
I'm sorry.
I have a list here.
We've had good movies. So name one.
Depending, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Great Detective Pikachu.
Yeah, Detective Pikachu was a great one. That was very good. I'm looking at my list here. See what the best.
Absolutely a movie.
It was a movie. Yes, I'm with Andrew. It was a movie that exists.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. I don't like Pokemon. I love it.
Oh, what? I'm gonna try and be friendly. I'm gonna say if you're talking about the Detective Pikachu, that was awesome. That was quite fantastic.
I mean, that was just Ryan Reynolds in a fursuit.
But yeah, that was because it was Ryan Reynolds in the first. You gave me a list of things you wanted shown, so
Of course. Sorry, Raul Julia was the best thing in that movie.
I am going to make a stand. I'm going to stand Street Fighter because this movie, whilst not good, did actually have some of the best representation of gameplay ever, because the fight scenes really did play out like Street Fighter fight scenes. I'm not saying if that's good. I'm not saying if that's bad. I do agree that Raul Julia was the best thing in it, but between that and that's probably even better than the Doom than the first person sequence in the Doom movie. So I'm defending it.
Doom was pretty much action sequence all the way until like literally the very end. Spoiler, they did turn it into a first person kind of scenery where it was like you were playing the game.
Which was awesome.
Then, yeah, that was the best part of the film. And then before that, it was just like,
I just love the fact that apparently the reason Street Fighter was so off the wall bizarre was that Jean-Claude Van Damme basically turned up coked out of his mind every day, and he was like high the entire movie.
But I mean, that's just all 80s action movies. I mean, that's the thing. Street Fighter is what happened. It's a 90s. It comes out at the end of just the beginning of the decade. But the thing is that it is entirely what you expect from the 1980s. You know, when you look at 80s action movies, it's like this is what happens when you give, as you say, cokehead producers who want a holiday in Thailand, and you say, right, guys, we need a movie to make all this happen. But that said, I still really like it. And I like that entire era of 90s movies because first, I feel like it's as long as it's partly having nostalgia for me, and it's partly that recognition that this was always going to happen. It's like the first Judge Dredd film. Danny Cannon is doing his level best, but at the same time, he can't escape the velocity of an 80s style action movie. Tomb Raider, which you've got on screen, I really enjoyed. I like,
Okay, when I said name one good movie, I'm
Harriet,
not saying
if there's any order you want me to go through in these that somehow fills your narrative, tell me.
That's fine.
Okay,
No, I
feel like I need to have a caveat on my statement of name one good movie, because the thing is, like, these I'm not saying these are not fun movies to watch, but they're not good movies. Like, the difference between a good movie and a fun movie for me is a very wide gap. You can have good and fun movies, but there are movies that you watch them not because they're great or they've got great acting, great writing. They're just fun. You watch the Tomb Raider movie, and it's like that bungee ballet sequence is so unnecessary, but we're gonna have it anyway because it's Angelina Jolie in silk pajamas.
See, I disagree with you, but hey,
I think
that's why it's a good one.
I think a fun movie can be a good movie. If a movie is successfully fun, that's fine. But that's a different thing.
Yeah.
No, I was just laughing at the Chris Barry cinematic debut. A fun fact, the reason why I watched the Tomb Raider movie was because I had a massive crush on Chris Barry. That's the reason why I watched it.
No, nothing wrong. Nothing wrong.
I actually ended up enjoying
everyone who watched that movie did it because they had a massive crush on someone in it. No one watched it for cinematic value.
That's true.
I mean, I watched it because I wanted to see if they'd give her the pointy boobs, but they didn't.
It's close enough. I mean, Harriett, have you seen Chris Barry do any of his live recordings of shows?
I haven't. No,
because
I really need to.
Yeah, because a few years ago when they were doing Red Dwarf series, whatever it was, back to back for Dave, Kim's mum is a huge fan, and so we got her tickets to go see it. We applied for it. We went down to Pinewood to watch it live. It was freezing, bitterly cold winter night, and we discovered something I never knew, which is that Chris Barry is incapable of delivering his lines properly and always has been. And so everyone else knows their scripts. Everyone else knows their lines. They've memorized them, even though they have them in front of them. The Starbug is now set up in such a way that they can have their scripts on the screen.
Nice.
Oh, that's amazing.
Right? And Barry still gets everything wrong. And there was a point where we were all sitting there thinking, when is this recording actually going to end? And one of the I can't remember who whether it was the director, somebody stood up and said, somebody on the set said, "Don't worry, guys, it's fine. If it gets to this time, we'll just cut it short anyway and finish it in post." Because he's that bad. I don't know if it's his age. Sorry, I'm not trying to do you down on your love of him because I've watched British Empire and I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of his, but I was really shocked. I was just like, "Oh my god, he's got to this point now where he just can't do it," which is such a shame.
So I think the only thing, sorry, go on.
No, you go on, Harriet. This is your thing.
This is your thing, not. Yeah.
No, I was going to mention Smeg Ups. That's it. But yeah, I mean, I was looking at the list of stuff that's going to be released, and I was quite surprised by some of them. Just Dance is being released as a movie. I don't know how. Metal Gear Solid. That's understandable.
Metal Gear Solid was. Some of those Metal Gear Solid games are almost a movie with occasional cutscenes where you have to hit buttons.
Yeah, doesn't Hideo Kojima get a bit annoyed when he has to put gameplay in his actual game?
Yeah.
Yakuza, again, understandable. Yeah. That's getting really popular. Five Nights at Freddy's, and then Mega Man. I know there was a cartoon, but
I mean, wasn't Mega Man a manga? Anime? No, I'm thinking of Astro Boy maybe.
I agree. Minecraft is another one that someone's just brought up.
They're doing Minecraft the movie?
Yeah. I don't know if it's going to be animated or live action.
They're also doing Tetris the movie, but that's the movie about actually the creation of and
the creation of
the story of Tetris. So you originally pitched this before we started going on about. And if you want to bring up any of the picks you please let me know. The original point you made was, are we getting better or are we getting worse? So what's your case on this?
Well, because we now have I'd say the right technology now, and also the right people, I suppose, who are making the films. Because with Sonic, I know it went through a whole phase of the original trailer, and then everyone just literally just destroyed the internet of the reaction of what Sonic looked like. But then obviously the fan input and stuff like that. Mortal Kombat, the one that's coming up, I believe it's by someone who is a massive fan of it, and it's also Simon McCoy. It's his first directorial debut. So looking at that, and you think that's your first movie, it looks really good. So I'm hoping it's kind of been on the steady pace. You do have the odd drops. Andrew, you're perfect in regards to the Yui Ball movies you had to watch for charity. This as well.
We almost got through it. We almost got through it.
Watch Andrew have a massive twitch.
But stuff like that, you do have the pothole, so to speak. So I'm hoping that now, we have the time, especially stuff.
You killed Andrew, Harriett.
Yeah. I'm hoping it will get better.
Yeah, basically. Away from He Who Must Not Be Named. I don't think technology is an issue. It helps.
No, I mean, but it's more advanced. That I don't know. Like with Mortal Kombat, you'd have like the pyro, and it was silly, fun stuff.
I think the difference now is that the people making these video game adaptations are the people who played them as a kid.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing, is like, we grew up, but like now our generation is making these movies now. So it's like they are doing it with love and not seeing it as a big like cash grab for a studio. So they're going to be it's still a cash grab for a studio, but the people who are actually making it are hoping to make it like what they would want to see as a fan of the series. And I don't want to call them fanboys, but that sort of.
I also think Sonic is a different issue, because Sonic is a lot more multimedia. That's got a really thorough. That had a TV show, that had a comic series. There was lots of. They were trying to make something to appeal to the wider lore and the wider audience, rather than doing the video game. I'm not sure what Mortal Kombat's got other than the video game. It's probably got stuff, but it's not as well known.
Yeah.
But
I think there was a manga.
Oh, there's a manga of everything.
Yeah, I know, but like,
okay, so go on.
No, I was just gonna say, fighting games are a weird one for me to like create movies out of, because who remembers the Dead or Alive movie?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god!
Right,
I love that movie, but that's
my personal favorite.
I love it because it's like they literally went, okay, what are the things that the fans like about the series? Put it in the movie, but it makes no sense. I don't care. Put it in the movie.
Yeah,
it's like,
but
you're in the movie.
So this is the fundamental thing, right? The games are based on films, right? Combat games in the 80s come out of 70s action films. Street Fighter, literally named after one. Right, the kung fu moves. Jackie Chan turns up as a character, etc., etc. Right, we have all that stuff in the 90s. Go on, Andrew.
I was going to say the Bruce Lee one where he's on an island. Enter the Dragon.
Enter the Dragon is the
Enter the Dragon has the one thing that struck me when I watched that movie. Finally got around to watching that movie, was how much it had the two knockouts element in the. Mm-hmm. People, you'd have this big exchange of blows, and then someone would back off, and then they'd come back in practically refreshed. So totally agreeing with you on that they ripped that gameplay off of those movies.
And the thing is that in the 90s, the problem was that they didn't understand how to bring them back round for two reasons. One is, as you say, there's a lot of people who didn't play games back then. But I think the other part of it is that there is also. And there's a really, really good interview somewhere between what's his name? The guy who created BioShock, Ken Levine, and Guillermo del Toro. And it's they went back when they ran Levine ran a podcast, and it took 2 episodes for them to talk through just everything they had to talk about. And there's a really interesting discussion about why they killed the BioShock project in Hollywood and what was going wrong with it. And what I love about Guillermo is because as a passionate filmmaker who understands cinema, but who is also a passionate gamer, I love the fact that as he hears the story and he's going, well, yeah, of course you can't do that because that's not how you do it. And he starts to lay out how you should do it. And there are certain fundamental things you cannot do in film. You just can't put the audience in the film in the way that a game tries, and it's very hard. And games can be cinematic all they want, but as our jokes about Kojima earlier said, it can be equally hard to do it in reverse. The thing about Mortal Kombat is that the Paul W.S. Anderson is arguably the first video gamer to be a director, right? And the first movie he made that was big after his debut shopping for film 4 was Mortal Kombat. And I think he nailed a lot of the things you needed from right out the gate. I think he nailed the idea of bringing in Hong Kong talent to choreograph film moves, even though it was on a very low budget. I mean, Robin Shou was the lead. He was also the choreographer, which he didn't do in his Hong Kong films. He did it in some of his Filipino films. Bring him in straight away. He understood that you had to conserve enough money for some basic effects that could convince certain characters. You know, we had reasonable, for the period, CG that did its best with certain characters, but we didn't have loads of it. It wasn't like trying to spread the budget. He understood that you had to take the piss because it's for an audience who don't really know the game. And he also understood that his personal love, because he started out in British music video, dance music, was going to make a big difference to how the film sold. And that kicks off all of those. Now, from then on, the reason that, you know, from then on, all these
We're
films...
talking the 1995 version, aren't we?
Yes, exactly.
Which had KMFDM doing the soundtrack when Industrial was huge.
Exactly. And Utah Saints do the theme tune, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So I feel like, and the fact that you, as Station Controller pointed out in the chat, you know, you then get the cartoon series, you had the live action TV show, which I'm one of the 3 people I know who is a fan of.
Never heard of any of that.
Late night Channel 4, I watched it religiously, and I'll tell you why. Because it had the best fight choreography ever in Western television. Like,
fair enough.
The plots were rubbish, the acting was terrible, the special effects were horrendous, but the fight scenes were unbelievable. The fact that they would cut to the fight scene and you could see straight away that the main characters were now stunt people just didn't matter. You're not watching it. It's pure Hong Kong television. Anyway, sorry, big digression. The point I'm trying to make is that I think you guys are not only right about the changes that have come about and who's making these films. James Wan is a producer on this. Half of the people who work with him at Blumhouse are working on this Mortal Kombat. So they are shepherding in a debut writer and director. But when you look at the co-writer they've brought in, right, this is where it gets interesting. So sorry, I've just been looking this up on IMDb and digging through. So the producers are still people who know movies rather than games. But the co-writer, most recently, right, has written Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse 2, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings for Marvel, Wonder Woman 1984, Zombieland Double Tap. He did the Jean-Claude Van Johnson TV series for Amazon. He's written all 3 Expendables. He wrote the Godzilla remake, and here's the one that's going to make you laugh. His first big credit after his showreel was Doom. So part of the learning curve is these people getting it wrong or doing it right, but then seeing the producers doing it wrong, and then they stay in the business long enough to be able to say, no, I'm not having it be like that. I've now got some clout. You know, I've written 3, I've got one DC movie and 3 Marvel movies under my belt. Thank you very much. Off we go. And I'm starting to, and I do wonder if part of the reason we're getting better at it is not the technology, it's not just the love of the original material, the original IP. I wonder how much of it is how long these people are in their careers to be able to say, no, I want to do it like this.
I'm on the same riff. I'm wondering how much is just that as a genre, it's only existed for
30 years.
No, 25 years.
Well, Mortal Kombat's 1995, but Street Fighter was 91.
There was also
Mario Brothers.
Mario Brothers is the first. That's 1990.
It was the first one.
30 years.
Yeah.
30 years.
Yeah. Now, you look at the development of genres in Hollywood over 30 years, some of them massively improved, and it was the novelty of the moving picture which kept some of it around. So the genre is only 30 years old, and it's not got a huge. It hasn't got a huge canon. Like, so the Western that went through 100 iterations a week for about 20 years.
Yeah.
There aren't, and you know, there aren't ones that people really put together. They are. I mean, I'm always of the opinion that the reason they fail is because the difference between a movie and a game is huge. So it's the adaptation issue. If you adapt a book, it's gonna, you know, it's not why they make a bad movie. They make a bad movie because they think it's just going to shit money. But the difficulty of making it good is for the fans is partly the adaptation bit. But I just wonder if it's just the actual damn genre finally working out how to do it and having made all the mistakes.
You know what's the perfect parallel? 1989, Batman, Tim Burton. This year, WandaVision. Look how far that's come as a genre.
Yeah.
Similar reasons, similar styles, and the fact that these genres are interacting behind the scenes. The fact that the guy who's written Wonder Woman 84 and Shang-Chi is writing Mortal Kombat, or co-writing, I should say. You know, these things are crossing over. It's not just the technology; it is the creative juices themselves.
Yeah, it's the whole melting pot of everything that the industry, for all the industries, for the video gaming industry, the movie industry, the TV industry, the fandom industry, I guess is what we could call it collectively, is that they now have talent that has an idea. It's like, okay, I want to make a Mortal Kombat movie. Okay, this producer has no idea what I'm talking about, but this producer does know what I'm talking about, and will, you know, understand when I'm like, no, we have to leave this in, or like this writer has never heard of Mortal Kombat, but this guy has, and he's also written other like martial arts films, so he'll get what I want to do. And again, like using the talent in it. I mean, I am not a Mortal Kombat fan. The only thing I really remember from the original movies was that like title track, you know, with the sort of techno and the Mortal Kombat. But I watched the trailer and I'm like, okay, I know which character that is. Like, I knew who everyone was. And I've got to say, my favorite bit in the entire trailer is the bit with the Australian guy with the hat with the heart in his hand going, "You fucking beaut."
Yeah, that's
like,
brilliant.
Yep.
It's great.
I'm just like, hello, that is my person. I'm rooting for him. He's who I want to win.
I know Mortal Kombat's a bad example, but you've also got the issue that the time delay between a game coming out and a movie is slowing down. Because there was about 12 years, Pink Jam will tell me I'm wrong, I'm sure. There was about 12 years between Mario Brothers coming out and the movie Mario Brothers coming out. So you're looking at stuff that appeal to a really different audience. That is the thing. You're looking. Okay. No, I'm wrong.
4 years max, she said.
4 years between Mario Brothers the game. I thought Mario Brothers came out.
Yeah, but you've got to remember that the Mario games where they were churning those out.
Okay.
When Nintendo, I think the Mario Brothers movie is not a good example to use because that is so far away from the original source material that it doesn't.
Mario Bros. A platform game developed and published by Nintendo in '83. Okay.
Actually, Lizzie, I think it's the perfect example to use for what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
I think Harriet's point about how far we've come.
But I mean, it's sort of like when you get it used to be that every time a movie came out, you'd get a video game adaptation of it, and there were some stinkers. Does anyone remember the Superman game? Sorry. Does anyone remember that Superman game? I think it was on the N64.
Everyone.
I think everyone knows that.
Yeah, it's like, oh boy, and but then you had things like the Spider-Man 2 placed it on the PlayStation 2 game. That was amazing. Nowadays it looks like rubbish because, well, PlayStation 2 graphics, but the technology, the web swinging, they got what you wanted in a Spider-Man game, swing around New York. And I think it's interesting now that they're not like, okay, this movie needs to have a video game tie-in because they think they've realized that's a bad idea. And I also think it's really good that when did the last Mortal Kombat game come out?
11's been released, I think, a couple of times.
I thought they dropped one every year and just put another number at the end of it.
They kind of had DLCs to it, so I think Gold was the last one to be re-released. And then
I know there's now more characters in that than there ever were in Blazing Squad. That's all I know.
But I think it's
accomplishment.
I think that they're I think maybe the industry is realizing as a whole that just because if a video game doesn't have to tie into a movie doesn't really have to tie into a video game, because okay, the Mortal Kombat story is fairly simple. There is this mystical magical tournament that happens every I don't know, the timing of how often this mystical magical tournament happens is me. A guy comes down from the cloud called Raiden and is like a Japanese thunder god, and we're not going to ask why he was white in the movies, but hey, that's racism in Hollywood more than anything else. And then people punch each other a lot, and one of them wins and saves the world. That's
I remember that game. I remember that. It was insane. Sorry, you were saying.
But what I'm saying is that, like, now I think because of the way that media is consumed, they're like, okay, we don't have to like rush these things, which I think, and like, let's be honest, the Mortal Kombat movie, like the base story is there. What's going to be the interesting part of this movie is the bit that they use to fill in, like how they introduce us to the character, why they make us care, like you know,
and that's why, and that's.
I thought they did that really well already in the trailer, like, you know, the whole introduction of Sub-Zero and why, like, this guy is this sort of rando dude is suddenly joining the Mortal Kombat tournament because he has this thing on his chest and apparently that makes him mystical. I don't know. I got lost a bit about that point, but then, like, the other characters they introduced, it was like, okay, I get it. It's used to punch people a lot.
I saw a bunch of people beating the shit out of each other, and they had pretty cool CGI, and yeah, I'm intrigued. It's going to be an interesting one to see.
I love that scene where Sub-Zero freezes the guy's arm off and then rips it off, and then later on, and then later on he turns up in the trailer with a metal arm, and I'm like, yes.
Okay, so to the peanut gallery. Do you think adaptations of video games are getting better? Do you agree with Harriet? Do you have anything else you want to say? Throw it in. Let us know.
Also, the Dupenstein wants us to hydrate.
I already hydrated. I've been supping away. I've been
good idea.
Sweet H2O. Thank you to the Dupenstein. I there was also a game type. Well, Mark's just going through all the weird ass.
Yeah, I was going to say he knows all of them. I didn't remember the
Let's accept the fact there are an awful lot of really shit movie to video game things out there.
Look,
there are a lot. Yeah,
Just Mark is in the other room, and the esoteric knowledge that man has about certain series, disturbing on levels that I cannot even begin to tell you.
I'm back in. I'm back in Team Mark. So we got just Mark. It might be getting better, but very fractionally. Let's face it. Any improvement. If Uncharted, Mortal Kombat, and HP and Last of Us works, maybe. Yeah, yeah, that's fair. Some good, some bad.
It's like I said, you know, you're going to have like a good, a good even ground, and then you're going to have the tumble. I mean, nothing's going to be 100%. Like you said, because the genre is new.
Yeah.
But then that's the same of any genre of movies. Like you get, there are good movies, and then there are awful movies.
I think though, I'm gonna put my cards on the table before you guys put your cards on the table, because I'm gonna shake it up here. I think I'm more open to the idea that it can be good, whereas previously I assumed it would be awful. They could be fun, but they'd still be bad movies. I mean, I'm looking at Mortal Kombat. It could be a laugh, but I'm also thinking it could just be an absolute load of bollocks strung together with really cool fight scenes, which will still be a laugh. So I think some stuff's getting better, but as a whole,
I think it's.
So that's my thoughts.
What was said before is like the passion of the people who make it, you know, if they're fans of the games to begin with. So you have the people making it from behind the scenes and the right producers. It's, you know, that does really, you can feel the love then in the movies. And I think that's a big benefactor, because you can watch a movie and you think, they've just kind of thrown this all together because they've been told random facts about this game. And they thought, well, we'll see if it works. But sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But if there is someone involved who is a fan, and you have someone leaving the cinema who is a massive fan of that game happy, you know you've done your job, and you know that person's going to enjoy it.
Yeah. Doom, for all its many, many flaws, you could tell they were seriously trying to go for it on that, and that made it watchable. Hugh.
Oh, I was just going to say, Dupenstein said in the quote in the comments something I was going to raise myself, which I think is that animation has done it.
Do you want to please read out that gentleman's comment? Because...
Yeah, Wreck-It Ralph was fun, which was more of a loose homage to games than a game tie-in. However, that's Disney magic also, so they tend to be easy to go down and pleasant no matter what. It was nice to see them do a love story to games. That's literally how I felt. I think I feel like the Wreck-It Ralph films do games better, and the feeling we have with games, and they've somehow nailed a way to make us appreciate everything.
My apologies. the Doppenstein is a lady.
My apologies.
I misgendered. You didn't.
Okay. I feel like there is a I think there's something they understand. I think maybe because it's animation, there was an understanding of where they could put the point of view and the way they could involve the characters that made us feel that slightly bridged that gap between the gaming first person and the need for a narrative and a character who talks to other characters and all the rest of it. And it's weird because I always feel like the most game-like thing I've ever seen on film is actually not in a game adapted film. There's a horror movie called Frankenstein's Army, which is by a European set director and art director on horror movies, and he designed this horror movie. It's a found footage World War II movie. Fits very neatly into its subgenre, but there is a scene because of the found footage. So we're following a Russian unit on the Eastern Front, and they come across a village where weird experiments are going on, and the implication is that the guy who's doing the experiments on behalf of the Nazis is actually Frankenstein's descendant, right? And he's messing around with bodies, but he's doing this thing where he is attaching mechanical bits to the body, right? So
cool.
you're getting human monsters. So like one of them is a German soldier, but instead of a face, he's got a propeller engine from a plane and weird stuff like that. And there was a point where all these monsters start coming out all at once, and because it's a first person film, the camera starts to move around, and I'm sitting there in the cinema at Fright Fest going, oh my god, and I'm going, where's my controller? I need to move. And I'm like, run, and the camera's like, the Russian guy's like, no, you see people dying and being shot off screen, and this guy's like, run, and he's running out the thing, and I'm watching the scene going, this is what a game movie would feel like. It's that one scene from Doom, but it took a movie that had nothing to do with a game to not only figure out how to do that, but they also couldn't build the whole film around it. It's literally the best bit in the whole film. The rest of the film is not great. And I think it's a very difficult thing to achieve. I think it's a really difficult thing to achieve. I think what we can hope for at best is that middle ground that we see with book adaptations. It's like Lord of the Rings. There are a lot of Lord of the Rings fans who did not like Lord of the Rings, the films, right? And then there's a lot of people who did. And there's a lot of people who didn't know the books who thoroughly enjoyed the films. And the films have inspired their own games and so forth and so on. And I feel like sometimes it's that middle ground. We're gonna whether we like it or not.
Hold that thought on fanboys. Lizzie, you get the final chunk on that.
So, Decadane made a very good comment about it was nice that Sonic and Pikachu worked, but we need more stability in the quality for it to be a new feature. The thing I find about the Sonic and the Pikachu movie was that was family friendly in the extreme. And Mortal Kombat, not family friendly in any way, shape, or form. Like, you can't take your nan to go see it, or your 6-year-old, or anything like that. And I think that family friendly video game movies are probably what the market is going to be glutted with, because obviously Pikachu and Sonic worked. It's why like Deadpool was such a out there for superhero movies, because it's like, okay, this is an R-rated superhero movie and people loved it, okay, but we're probably not going to make any more because it doesn't make as much money as, say, the cutesy ones.
The other main thing is Ryan Reynolds in anything.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Reynolds, yes, but
yeah.
I mean, call me a cynic, but
You're a cynic.
Yeah, okay, I'm a cynic. I freely admit it. A good trailer does not make a good movie. And while because like I have been suckered in by trailers before, I'm like, that looks amazing, and then you go and see the trailer, the actual movie, and you're like, they put all the good stuff in the trailer. So I reserve judgment on Mortal Kombat. If it works like I think they're hoping it will, great. If it doesn't, it's another fun, silly movie that we can all watch with our friends, and there'll probably be about 9 drinking games for it.
Okay, so yeah, that's interesting. I do feel though there's nothing wrong with family friendly movies.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying there is. I'm just saying that that's probably going to be the market like big part of the market for a long time. Like, I think Mortal Kombat is an interesting way to start this sort of new revolution after Sonic and Pikachu. But hey, it might work. But I'm very much glass half empty.
I'm going to be bold. I'm going to call the general sentiment to the audience. Things are looking good. I'm going to agree with Harry on this one. they are getting better. Mortal Kombat definitely looks like it could be a laugh because apart from anything else, it seems to have recognized the key thing is brutal violence. But people are still going to be cautious because it's still a comparatively young genre. It's been around for a long time, but there aren't any really good examples. There's not like a huge catalogue of good examples from the structural narrative side, which is where it normally lacks. Anyway, talking of wondrous things, Hugh.
So this week, yes, we're going to end on the news from this week, and it's not necessarily geeky per se. I think not everyone, I think, would include music as a geek arena, although obviously it's been around a long time. And
you get music geeks.
Yeah, we do. No, we are there. I'm just saying. I think there's there's an interesting gap in generations and a certain gap in snobbery that I think applies to music geeks. But anyway, the point is 1993 to 2021, Daft Punk, one of the most important and certainly one of the most geeky set of musicians out there, French band who two guys who revolutionized dance music in the 90s, funnily enough alongside when Mortal Kombat was happening. It's very interesting how it all happens at this time. They and also people men who embrace science fiction in their imagery. And animation and anime. The first film I ever saw for free when I started working in the business was Interstellar 555. They have called it a day. They've called it quits. They announced it via a YouTube video, which is an extract from their film from a few years ago, and it feels like the end of an era in all sorts of ways. And yet, because of we're locked down and because of the internet, we are literally 3 days after the announcement, and already the memes are flying, the jokes are flying, and already the article has moved down the front page of the music websites like Pitchfork and so forth, and Consequence of Sound, and it's already buried. You have to look for the article to find it out. Right? That's we're moving on that quickly.
Wow.
And it made me wonder, the meme that made me put this down for what we should talk about tonight is specifically this one here that turned up on Twitter, or a variant thereof. I really wish Daft Punk had not told us they were splitting up, just give a new guy the helmet and let us think everything is fine. And I've seen variants on that meme. I've seen variants on that. People basically saying, well, why didn't they just let someone else do it? And I thought, is that where we're at now? Right?
Are people aware of intellectual property and
No. It's
there's the side of me as a geek. There's the whole James Bond as a code name. The whole Newton-Wald continuity thing. Everything's connected and all of that. And I love that idea. It's a cool idea. That Daft Punk go on forever. I love that idea. On the other hand, these guys truly deserve the word artists. And they have made a choice to call it a day. And they've announced that publicly. Yeah. And they're entitled to. And I don't, they don't owe us anything more as far as I can see. But I am fully aware that this is a thing that we all have trouble with as geeks and with passions. We don't want things to end. I mean, some things are built with endings in them. And yet, if somebody comes along and says, hey, I've got this really good idea for a sequel, some of us will go no, and others will be like, okay, just give us a bit. Let's see how it goes. Harriet's point about Mortal Kombat, this is this film version. We just had a TV show, 2 years ago? TV version of it. And then before that, there was the fan film. And then, there's these things are, certain things are consistently carrying on. And you could argue that this is a fault of previous media. You could say it's the movie's fault for recasting James Bond. It's TV's fault for deciding that Doctor Who shouldn't end with the first Doctor. You could argue that. But you could also say that with music and music itself, particularly music that's built on other music, because, of course, sampling was a key part of what Daft Punk did, you could argue that it's something that doesn't end anyway, because it already started on the basis of other music. So is there an argument here? I mean, are we just all really bad as geeks at saying goodbye to things? I know I am. I mean, I will put my hand up here, right? The list of TV shows I've never finished is massive. I've watched everything but the last season. I have a list of these. It is at least 20 shows on there. I just can't do it. As long as I don't finish it, they're still there. The world is happening. The characters are going on, right? So I get it. I know of whence I speak here. But at the same time, I'm getting older, and we're in the middle of a pandemic, and tragedy happens, and there's all this around us. And I sort of thought to myself, you know what? These guys deserve a break. We should let them have it.
I think some of it is the riff on the fact that they are an electro band and they're two guys in a mask. So no one would physically be able to tell the difference because it's recorded music. So
they just have to turn up,
You just need you do just need two guys on stage pretending to press buttons. And I know that's like a real reduction of that, but with their live performances, especially when you've got a sound and light and effects rig like they do, you run that on autopilot because you're going to bollock. You don't want to risk anything because it's going to go horribly wrong. But yeah, that's some of the gag. But yeah, some of it is just people. Yeah, it's a band that's I'm not a huge fan of Daft Punk, but I totally respect the big fans going, "Wow, it's over," or that sucks. Simple as that.
I mean, I've watched bands come and go, and I've followed bands onto being, when they've broken up, and I've followed the different components as they try to do their own art, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And in Daft Punk's case, the implication of their video is that one of them will still be going on. So who knows? Your point, I know what you're saying about the fact that it's electronic music, but I think that's also why
horribly reductive.
Yeah, but I think it's also interesting that they are the guys who changed the idea of what electronic music did, because they started being people who sampled, and they ended up with their most recent album doing everything live with classic artists. And I think that arc they followed suggests, and the fact that they were still successful and very good at what they did, suggests there's a core talent that maybe, I don't know, maybe that's what we're going to lose here, is that core talent.
But they're about, they can come back, they can do it again. But I think it does show.
I saw that video. I'm pretty sure one of them's not coming back.
Are you sure?
No, we had a Ouija board and Frankenstein.
And good mechanics.
I am going to put my cards on the table and say this is Daft Punk. If you are taking the most obvious interpretation of their video, then fine. Be basic. There's nothing.
Well.
I'm just saying. I've watched a number of their videos and gone, almost understand it. They do have the ability to come back. It's not so. I think some of it is that false ending thing. It's like, they could carry on doing it, and the fans want them to carry on doing it. But the fact it's become a non-story, I think that's more to do with the velocity that information travels these days, rather than it not being a thing. Everyone now knows they broke it, that they're over. Everyone's done their think piece in 4 days. There's nothing more to say other than, bloody hell, I wish there was another album, if it's your thing. I don't think people are accepting it any quicker, because there's still people. The fact that we started this up and people are going, "Don't make me cry." There's still emotions rolling around about this stuff.
But that's kind of what I wanted to get at as well, is the whole notion of what all of this stuff that we talk about on the Big Stomp. Every time I come on it, there's always passion and there's always enthusiasm and there's always memory, and so much of this, I'm surrounded not just by the stuff that I love and watch and read and listen, but there's a lot of stuff in here that I worked on, which is one of the reasons it's here. And rooting through it last week and sort of sorting stuff to get rid of and stuff to keep, I was kind of going down that path of looking at things that ended. And I was just thinking a great deal about, anime shows I worked on where there was never a second season, or shows where, we discussed, there was a discussion about something that never happened from production end. I can remember being asked by the head of ADV who I would suggest to direct the Evangelion movie if the Hollywood deal succeeded. And crazy, like that just seems such a long time ago that idea was even a thing. The live action Evangelion movie. And for the record, I suggested Ang Lee, but that's another matter.
I could see that working.
Because he's obsessed with fathers and sons in all his films, as well as knowing how to do the big CG.
Well, he basically did do Evangelion. He just called it the Hulk.
That was my argument. That was literally my argument, right? Nick Nolte is just
I can't explain how much I dislike that movie.
I love that movie.
I hate that movie.
I love that movie. But that's fine. But the thing is, I just think, also as a teacher who has to go back into school in 2 weeks, there's also the thing of I suddenly remembered I haven't finished my will, and I need to sort that out anyway, just because I'm at a certain age.
Yeah,
I'm going to turn 50 very soon as well, and it's just all these things hit me at once, and I just thought to myself, what are the things that still matter to me? What I'm hanging on to all this crap, but how much of it matters? How much of it what am I gonna rewatch? What are the things I love? What are the things that ended, and what are the things that keep going that I'm going to keep collecting? And I'm not sure anymore. There's still, the Bonds kind of. I lost. Station Control and I have argued about this for ages with the Craig era, but the Bond series used to matter a lot to me. It doesn't anymore. The Star Wars series used to matter a lot to me. It stopped in 2006, and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So what am I left with? What matters to me now? I don't know. I don't know how I feel anymore about these things, and about how when somebody stops the series, I'm like, okay, are we going to get another one? No. Some things I still wish there was a second series, but the further it goes back in the past, the less I can worry about whether there will be a second series. Like the idea that streaming might bring back Firefly, like who cares? It's been so flipping long.
That's always the one that always comes up, isn't it? It's like, when is season 2 of Firefly coming out?
It came out. It's called the movie.
Yeah, the movie's the finale.
That also didn't do as well as everyone hoped it would. I think the one thing in between. The one thing I have to absolutely give Daft Punk credit for, regardless of my differing opinion with other people about whether or not it's like utterly over or whatever, they ended it well, and they ended it definitively.
Yeah.
Obviously, they can just come back and make more music. You can't physically stop them. I mean, Christ, Motley Crue signed a document saying they'd never reform, and that didn't work, even though people did try to enforce that contract on them. Yes. It showed a definite end. And I think that's good. And I think ending well is a definite thing. 'Cause there's so many bands I know that have just kind of got a bit crap. And there's so many series that kind of got a bit crap, like you with the James Bonds. They've carried on beyond the point where you care about them. So you now care about them less, even though you can ignore all those things if you want. You've got this idea that it's now this whole collected work. They did let Firefly die, but that's the problem. Firefly didn't die because Firefly never got a decent ending. That the Firefly situation is a brilliant example of it didn't have the ending to finish it. It even finished on a new story arc. So
I mean, I'm going to say something.
No tears.
I'm going to say something probably slightly controversial in that I don't like Daft Punk as a band, personally. It's a personal opinion. Like, I'm not into that.
You don't have to like him to appreciate what they've done.
That's fine.
No, I'm not into that genre of music. I don't understand it. I sort of look at it like I look at a lot of things that kids are into, and I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, my old lady comes out and
they're hopping.
Yes, my old lady comes out and like, what? But as I was getting into this conversation with someone on Reddit, and it was a conversation, it wasn't an argument, and they were like, oh my God, I'm so sad they're gone. And I'm like, I said something to them and they were like, actually, that makes me feel a lot better. And art never dies. Like their art still exists. Whether I like it or not as an artistic medium is not the point. Their art continues beyond them. It's the same with all artists. Like if they die or they stop doing whatever they're doing, their body of work still exists unless, you know, it gets wiped out due to political reasons. But it still exists because people are inspired by what Daft Punk did. And like there's, oh my god, what is he? He wears like a mouse on his head. Dead mouse?
Dead mouse.
Yeah, apparently he's been inspired by Daft Punk. Someone was telling me.
Loads of people have been.
So that's the thing. It's like, yes, it is sad, but they did this for 28 years. That's a career. Like, I mean, considering, like, I watched some videos of their shows and I'm like, they did that for 28 years? Oh my god, no wonder they wore the helmets so they didn't go deaf. And like... They probably want to go and do other things without being Daft Punk. They want to be, I don't actually know their names outside of the helmets.
Yeah, but that's fine.
That's half the fun of it.
But I think the problem is that yes, it's much like when anything ends, whether it be a series, a movie, a book, or even human life. It's like, yes, it's very sad, but that is part of the grieving process, and I like grieve, but also remember all the good things.
Yeah, I think that's why I wanted to raise this though, Lizzie. Is I'm not sure that I'm not sure that in all the years I've met geeks and been around geeks, I get the impression there's a lot of them who are very unable to handle grief and unable to handle.
They're not able to handle endings. They're not. Yeah. There's always that there's always that wanting more.
Well, that's human nature, though. That's just not relevant to geeks themselves. Like everyone, if they have something they enjoy, they want more. Like geeks, I think, are less able to handle stuff like this because, let's be honest, most of us did not enjoy childhood particularly well. Like I was certainly bullied a lot at school, and like I found comfort in my fandoms. And that was my escape. And when that ends, you sort of get this feeling that, where do I escape to now? Despite the fact that I'm 36 years old now, I can escape wherever I want. I can find new fandoms, but everyone likes their rut, their niche, their place, and suddenly that place is gone, and you kind of feel... It's a bit like when you lose... Do you remember as a kid, you'd lose your mum in the supermarket and you'd have that awful like moment of... and then you'd find her again, because it's sort of like that horrible... It's that perpetual moment of... What do I do now? I'm lost. I have nothing to hold on to. And then you're like, oh wait, new shiny thing. Well, that's just
for me in particular, I mean, behind me you can see, if NSP were to ever I know it's going to happen one day, I will be really upset. And like a few people in the chat will understand because they're fans as well. But I was going to bring up another point. Has anyone ever heard of Unasanus?
Tell me more.
Right, so it was a channel that Markiplier and Crank Gameplays put together, and Unasanus means 1 year. So they basically made a channel where in 1 year, everything would be deleted, it would never be re-uploaded, and they pretty much just done it like...
Did a video a day.
A video a day for 365 days a year. And then and obviously because of quarantine, I think some of it they kind of filmed through what we're doing now, and then 2/4 of it was they met and then they were able to do silly stuff like find a needle in the haystack. But people really got into it because it was one of those things that people could escape to, like Lizzie said, it's their fandom. And I remember because in the last episode they did an 8-hour live stream where it was just the two of them sat in the chair, Markiplier and Ethan, and they literally just talked about everything they'd done. They had a coffin in the middle of the live stream because basically their motto was Memento Mori, means you're gonna die. So it was really sad. I remember I stayed here in the UK. It was 12 hours. It was from 8 till 8 in the morning. I watched as much as I can with friends, and I kid you not, by 8 o'clock UK time, when everything had finished and they shut it all down and everything was deleted, the sadness you could feel from the people because the grieving process of it's never coming back. And that was the whole idea of it, was so that things die.
They went into it knowing that was going to happen, and still they grieved.
Pretty much. Exactly. Yeah.
But they also But it also built a community because I didn't know what it was when it came up on like Facebook. I had to Google it, and I'm still confused. But like, it's my inner old lady is just like, what is this? What is the youth doing? But like it built a community because I still see people talking about it online, and it like people then were sharing other things. Well, hey, if you like this, I really like this. Try it. Like it perpetuated the whole sense of like belonging to something, and I think it was beautiful. Like what they did is a performance piece and an artistic endeavor. I think that was great. Despite the fact I knew nothing about it until it ended, I was like, oh well, that's a really good idea. That's really clever. And like from an artistic standpoint, brilliant.
I got into it very late, but luckily I was able to catch up like just through watching it. It was only like 10-15-minute videos.
I heard about it at the end, and I kind of liked the fact that it wasn't something I could catch up with. Like I said, knowing the internet, someone backed it up. Someone probably did.
Yeah.
But people are being pretty aggressive with shutting that down, because the thing is this, in a world of what I've described as the eternal now, where there is no fading of memory, it's just this constant stockpiling of more things on top of each other. To actually have something that is transient, and you had to be there to be, to literally, you had to have been there to have that go.
That's ultimately why I raised the topic in the first place. I think your point is spot on. There is this eternal now, and the kids I'm teaching now, you can see it. The idea, the if it's not streaming, it's not there. If it's not available, it's just not there. But then when it's there, they want it to carry on forever. They want more and more.
I noticed a huge cultural change when the world went online. And it was around about the time hipsterism first kicked off, because I think this was part of it, was just the easier access to the past, was that everything, that there were no longer the waves, there were no longer the noticeable genre shifts, because everything was there. But now with that thing they did with the 365-day thing, there's going to be people that was there, and there's going to be people that weren't. And that's that. The one thing I'd say is that when I see a huge, hopefully it's kind of like sandcastle a lot, but you can take a photo of a sandcastle. The one thing I'd say was going back to the going kind of sideways with riffing off the Daft Punk idea of you can just put two people in the suit and they'll carry on. I think some of the fandom element is because so many of the big projects are collaborative. You could literally have a completely new team making the next Star Wars trilogy. No one that had anything to do with the previous 9 movies needs to have anything to do with the next 3 movies. I think that's part of the reason that fandom finds it very difficult to give up on things, because so much stuff that they're into, there's no reason for it not to carry on. As long as they're still paying money, they can still do it. Daft Punk, you kind of need the 2 people who did it to keep it going. But now they're gone. But even then, I mean, one of them could carry on as Daft Punk. There's how many bands have got like one original member left in them? So I said, and normally one original member playing like 20 people and a dog. I think that's part of the reason when you're talking about people having difficulty accepting the end of things. I think that's because people are like, well, why does it have to end?
Oh yeah.
And for fandom, so much of it is because there's no reason for it to end. These aren't real things.
Yeah.
No, but they're real people making them, and those people would like to do other things. They'd like to do other projects. I mean, even George Lucas, well, actually, to be fair, George Lucas got Star Wars taken away from him, but, the point still stands.
No, but he was the guy, I mean, I was going to bring him up as the perfect example of the guy who everyone was expecting to do these things after American Graffiti and THX 1138 and all these projects that he would do, and none of which came to pass. And then finally he gets rid of Star Wars, like, great, Red Tails, I can do it, I think there is something to be said for art created by artists because they want to make it, whether or not there's an audience, versus the fundamentally commercial nature of a lot of the art that as geeks we love. You know, I love and adore comics, but I'm also I gave up on reading monthly issues years ago because it's no longer for me. It's not for me. It's not what I want. I want the graphic novel. I want the storyline, but also I understand the format too well. I understand too well that this is being designed a certain way so that it will make me want to come back and buy the next issue next month. The commercial aspect of it is something I'm not interested in anymore.
You've also got the insanity of going out at the top of your game. People don't do that. Daft Punk, last album, I heard nothing but great for it. It did commercially incredibly well. It did incredibly well with the old fans. It brought in new fans, and they, so these are people that could carry on being at the top of their game and headlining these huge events, and they just went bye. Or
I think there's a huge amount to be said for that. I think more artists should call it a day when they know when they want to. I think we need to accept that.
Isn't there a quote about something about leaving them wanting more?
Yes,
I can't remember the full quote, but you're like, I think
always
that's a
leave
brilliant.
Them wanting more.
Yeah, that's a brilliant way, because like the fact that Daft Punk have done this, and there is so much, sadness, anger. There is a bit of anger I've noticed in some people, but that's but the fact that they've done this and they've gone, you know what, we were going out on a high, bye, see ya, and everyone's like
grieving process.
Yeah, I did tell someone to die salty then when they were like, why could they stay and do another album? It's like, because they didn't want to, but I want them to. Well, that's great. You go do an album.
But that's it, and that's exactly why I brought this up all along, was because I really feel that the inspiration. I mean, we on this show we have often talked in the past about fan fiction, fan creation, fan involvement, and inspiration is a big part of that. And actually that's the thing, isn't it? You missing it, go do it yourself. Thanks to Andrew, I got into the modern Andrew and Pink Apple Jam. I got into synthwave properly because it's stuff doing what I love from the first time around. And actually half the joy of it has been me going, oh, they obviously listened to that bit there that I remember from 40 years ago. Now they're doing that with it. That's cool. Actually, that's what I want to see more of. And actually, but if Daft Punk go out at the top of their game, let's great. It opens up scope for someone new. I just hope somebody. I just would love people to be open-minded and open to that and go, all right, shame that's gone. Now what's next?
I'm gonna finish this section to a fan. I'm sure there's many other fans out there. I adore them, and their artwork is absolutely going to last forever. I think the biggest thing that sucks about it was I never got to see them live because the shows were sparse, and I was too young to see them when they did. But C'est la vie, the album for that live tour is like being there. The energy is in a live 2017 is wild to listen to. Yeah, I know so many bands I wish I could have seen live and didn't, and it makes live shows better because every time I'm there, I'm just like, well, I've got to see those guys live. That's awesome. And thank you for the music. So that was that section. Oh yeah, we also had this question. In recent music news, did you guys hear about the Metallica Twitter shenanigans? Did anyone out there not hear about this? This was genius.
I nearly died from secondhand embarrassment.
We talked about this on the Big Stomp a while ago. Metallica played BlizzCon on Twitch.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
Until Twitch DMCA'd them and replaced it with generic Plinky Plonk. So you've got Metallica playing Metallica live and doing their whole "We Were Once Hardcore" thing with dun 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 in the background. It was, oh boy!
Oh, those Twitch DMCA bots are.
They are awful.
Got fired that day. Someone got so fired.
Well, no, that's the problem. That's the problem. There was no one to fire because it's literally a bot. It's a robot.
Someone got fired that day.
Probably. I mean, just. I mean.
2021.
2021, everyone. 2020 never went away. It just got older.
It's been an interesting watching month.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
goodness gracious.
it was a brilliant one, but
Has anyone from the Peanut Gallery got anything they want to haul up on this one? Please hit us up. We've still got sort of a somewhat flattering, at least. They still got it so much that's.
Yeah.
Oh God, or they started playing Frantic, and they started playing something from Saint Anger, and the system just went, no, that was even worse than the Black Album. But that's Metallica did 4 albums, and then they became a pop band. Anyway, I'm not old.
I'm enjoying getting old. I plan to enjoy it. I want to be the crotchety old lady going.
I've started seeing people, because I'm technically part of Gen X. I've started seeing people doing the, if you were born between this time and this time, you were part of Gen X. We did this, we did that, and we were the first people to use cassettes and CDs and MP3 and all that. Oh, yeah, it was so much better then. And it's like bollocks, it was.
But but it's like you had to be born between something and like 1979, and I'm like, I was born in 1984. Yeah. I remember doing all of those things that you've just listed.
Same. Yeah.
I'm like, I remember all that. I grew up with all that, and by God, that would have been better if we had all the stuff the kids have got now.
But this whole generational war is just like, it's set up by like the boomers and things like that to make us hate each other, so we continue perpetuating this whole like divide. And
I don't want to hate the youth of today.
No, I don't.
Nothing to upset me.
No,
I don't like a lot of their music because I grew up on Slayer, but
I love as much as I like keep going, oh, darn kids, get off my lawn. I joke. I'm kidding. Like, I love watching new people come into fandoms that I am in. Yeah. They're like, hi, I'm 16 and I've only just played this game, watched this movie, seen this series. I really like it. Can anyone give me any advice? And like the sheer, like, you hear all about the trolls, but the sheer like love and acceptance in these fandoms of these people, it's like, oh, hi, I'm like, yeah, I'm old enough to be your grandmother, but here, these are the series that I really like, and if you like this series, you'll love these. And then these people come back and they're like, oh my God, the recommendations were amazing anymore.
I know this is like a legal obligation on my part to mention it, but in the Doom Troll fandom, the thing I'm absolutely loving is these kids, and I'm going to use this not in a negative way, but just as a quick exemplifier. We've got these kids turning up and joining the fandom and going, right, well, this character is is lesbian, this character is transgender, putting all this representation on stuff, and I'm looking at it and going, really? Why? With my I've read everything sort of thing, and they're just like, oh yeah, well, screw you, we're right. And I'm like, fair point, well made. Okay. They're just looking at it, and they're making me go, oh, I never thought of that. Cool. I don't necessarily agree with them on all of it, but I love the fact that they're taking this thing and grabbing it and running with it and going, this is ours, and I'm like, yeah, that's fun.
But they're fitting it into their worldview, and I have to say, as scary as the world is now, I find that the youth of today, are so much more accepting of people who are outside the societal norms. Like, I love it. Like, you hear all these wonderful feel-good stories. Okay, some of them may not be true, but I remember one that always sticks with me. Was basically, there was a trans girl on a cheerleading team, and the entire cheerleading team went, any guy who makes fun of her does not get a date for the entirety of high school. Cool. And it's like, yes, that is the youth that I want to leave this planet to, because they might actually fix the mess that it's in.
Yeah. We've got a comment from Lyco. They have to label everything. I disagree. I kind of get where you're coming from on that, but I kind of disagree with that as a bad thing. I think it's with the stuff I was experienced with the Doom Troll recently, it was them identifying something in the character I hadn't identified before. That's not them labeling it. That's them interpreting it. And I thought it was an act of acceptance. It was an act of expansion. So I'm cool with that, And if it gives, fuck it, I don't care. If some kid somewhere goes, oh right, this character is like me, cool. Then I'm fine with any label you want to throw on it. Make someone feel better, go for it.
But media has been so white, cisgendered, and male-dominated for so long that it's great that these kids... Like, I watch programs and I'm like, okay, I identify with that character because to me they have things that I have. Even if that's not actually the canon, it's just the way they're shown on the media. I'm like, yeah, that's... I get it. Or like... when you see like the new Miss Marvel in the comics is, Islamic, and it's like, I love that. Like, okay, she's not my Miss Marvel. My Miss Marvel is still Carol Danvers because that's the Miss Marvel I grew up with. But I love that there is this representation. Like that's what I want. I want everyone to be able to watch something and go, there is a character I see myself in.
It's also to an extent people going, oh right, well you're not representing this group. Okay, sod it. This character now represents this group. It's like forced representation almost. It's not perfect, but I love the fact that they're doing it.
Yeah, I like the fact that they are trying to be, even if the media itself is not including them, that they're making it inclusive for people other than themselves. I love that. I just think wholesome as heck, and like, they're good little beans.
The kid who loved Drax the Destroyer because his literal nature resonated with the kid's autism. Cool. Okay. Drax the Destroyer is now autistic. I have no problems with that. I have other problems with Drax the Destroyers, and the bad characterization of him on a number of points. But I'm totally down with that because that makes somebody happy.
But I also love the fact that they are now, like, speaking as, someone who is actually, like, disabled, is that they are hiring disabled actors to play the roles. Like, they're hiring people who are deaf to play deaf characters. They're hiring people in wheelchairs to play characters that are, and they're hiring, like, I know there was that thing on Netflix recently about this family that they were hiring people with actual autism to play these characters. And it's great because it's showing that these kids that, oh no, it's fine because you can do what you want because there are people who are like you who are doing it, and they're not like a healthy, normal person portraying you as a stereotype. I'm like, yes, please, hello, can we have more of this?
Well, there are autistic actors. There are. We were watching Debug, on Trash or Treasure a while ago, and there was a character who was disabled, so they got someone with a disability in to play them.
Wait, was that the one? Was that the one that was the Jamiroquai video in space?
It was Debug with Jason Momoa that kind of looked like a Jamiroquai video in space. There were other elements to it.
Yeah, it was totally a Jamiroquai video in space. It was fun though. Like, it wasn't awful.
Yeah. But it's nice to see people doing that. Although you still get areas, because I think it was music that recently got a whole bunch of grief for number one, misrepresentation of autism, and number two, and this is the bit that I think is a spectacular screw up, the film's basically unwatchable by a lot of people with the autism being demonstrated in the film. And it's just like, you've got all these flashing lights, you've got all these sudden noises, you've got this huge dynamism between the sounds, and all this stuff happening that the people who it's supposed to be representing would just freak the hell out at because it would overload them. And I'm just like, wow, that's an amazing own goal.
Check your ableist privilege, please.
Yes. Here's Marcel Marceau with his Ode to Blind People. Yeah. He was a mime artist.
I think it's interesting on the representation front. Marlee Matlin obviously got her Oscar in '86, and she's, as profoundly deaf actress, and fantastic career, great performer, and still acting now. But it's interesting that she's recently been interviewed, and she's saying she's looking forward to the day that another deaf performer gets the Oscar. Because of course she is the only one, But it's also interesting to look back at a time where some of these steps forward were already being taken, and it always feels, I've said this before in other contexts other than here, but I always feel like when the century turned, we took a lot of steps back. One of the things I always enjoyed about in the 90s about British TV was the number of women working in British television who were pushing boundaries. There was a show, and its name goes out of my head completely right now, which lasted 2 seasons, which was about an all-female taxi cab firm. And it was an absolutely brilliant weekly drama because it effectively allowed for an anthology show. In other words, each week didn't have to be just a crime show or whatever. It could change week to week depending on the drivers, depending on the passengers they picked up, the stories, but also it was based on a real life cab firm, the first British London cab firm that was all female, that was specifically designed to allow women to get a safe ride home. And loads of actresses who weren't getting work or were always getting cast in the same roles were all in this show. It was a really good show. And it's a classic example of the sort of thing that I don't see as much of anymore, though I think lately we're getting back in that direction thanks to things like Netflix. I do feel like there's a lot of firsts that happen along the way that could have paved the way, and we're sort of working our way back to a place where certain things are more normal, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but as I said, media needs to represent the world, and it's slowly starting to get there. And as you say, Hugh, there was that wonderful surge in the 90s and sort of the early aughts, and then it just kind of petered out. I was having a conversation with Mark the other day. The Marvel MCU, love that. Love every single one of those movies, even the bad ones. But if you think about their representation of women to start with, you had Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow, and you look at how she was portrayed in that movie, the low zip, the beautifully curled hair and the silly high heels and all the rest, and then you watch the evolution of her character throughout all the movies. Okay, she was still in the skin tight outfit, but it was zipped all the way up. She got a sensible haircut. She wasn't made up to 9 million ways. And then you had Captain Marvel and all the other female, Lady Sif, all the female characters in it became more realistic. They were less one dimensional, one note. Oh yeah, they're just there for TNA. It's I love that. It's just I love that so much. Oh, yes, where were you when I was a kid? I mean, when I was a kid, I had to find my own female role models, and most of them were dead authors. Hey, I wrote a letter to Louisa Alcott when I was about 8, and I got a very nice letter back from her estate telling me I'm very sorry, but she died in whatever year it was. But they said it was really nice. It was a lovely letter. I probably still got it somewhere. And I just thought, okay.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, go for it.
That's cool. I actually think that's really cool that you wrote a letter and they bothered to reply.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What an estate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how big her estate it was or is at the time, but it was just I got a letter back from them. It was just I got it at my boarding school, and my teacher was like, "Why are you getting a letter from these people in America?" And I'm like, "I wrote her a letter," and I don't.
But I think
hey, go for it. You'd be amazed what you get. Sorry, I was distracted a bit because we're having an argument on the in the comments about whether the Pokemon photosensitivity incident happened.
Oh, the seizure episode
really didn't, in the way that a lot of people think it did.
I think the thing that didn't help was that Simpsons episode that sort of parodied it.
Oh yeah.
The number of people who take Simpsons as truth is just and who learn their history from the Simpsons, and I'm just like,
apparently I was reading on Twitter or Facebook. Apparently, Simpsons is getting good again. The more recent seasons, they're actually. Yeah, I haven't watched The Simpsons for ages, but apparently it's returning to what it was originally. And I'm thinking, is this true? Can anyone confirm this besides this one guy on Twitter?
Does it matter?
It's one person who said it.
That's the thing. I liked The Simpsons. I used to enjoy watching that on a Tuesday evening on BBC Two. Between. God, what was it? What was before The Simpsons and what was after it? I can't remember.
Usually Star Trek was on after it, or Buffy.
Yeah, except for if the snooker was on.
Yeah.
Okay, and with the magic words, the snooker was on. We have gone way off script. I'm gonna call this big stomp to a close. You're talking about the damn snooker.
No, what I was going to go into was a rant of when we only had 4 channels, and when sporting events were on, the cool shows like Star Trek and Buffy got canned for the week.
That was pish. We've officially got to the bit where we're going to start plugging things. So, Hugh, Hugh's gone. My God, Hugh's gone.
What did you do? What did you do to Hugh?
I didn't do shit to Hugh.
Oh no!
Somebody. Okay,
Bring him back.
You ping him.
Me ping him. No, here he is.
He's back.
Hey, guys.
You ran away.
Now,
Everyone was worried where you were.
sorry.
Oh,
Got snapped.
Yeah. God, yeah. Thanos got me. So, a couple of things happening. We've got Real History still running. We took a break last week, but this week we will be back. We've got a couple in the can, which we're preparing. We're also going to be, as when Wonder Woman 84 comes out on the home video here in the UK, we will be running a series.
Sensibly priced.
Yeah, we'll be running a series of Real History podcasts about various Wonder Woman related things. We'll be doing the Wonder Woman film, we'll be doing Wonder Woman in an animation, and we'll also be doing Professor Masterton and the Wonder Women. That's
fans of BDSM.
It's
Sign
a great
up for
film.
that one.
It's a great film. So we'll be covering that. It's not just me, a whole bunch more. But it's a great film, and we'll be covering all of that in February and March. So yeah, listen in on Thursdays, and hopefully I'll be getting a few articles finished for you guys at Bunker as well.
That would be awesome. And you did an episode on the Princess and the Frog, which was pretty damn awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I did like that one. I really enjoyed that.
That.
Yes, it's definitely for all those Disney folks. I learned from it and I laughed from it.
Well, Jenna was never going to let us get to this point in the seasons without doing Disney.
Yeah,
films.
and you also did a brilliant and okay, let me try and get through this sentence completely. You did a brilliant and hilarious episode about the Holocaust, specifically Denial, the Holocaust denial episode, in which they recreated that wonderful court case where someone turned up with actual facts and sued the shit out of someone who denied the Holocaust. And it was funny because Holocaust deniers going to court and having to pay costs is great because it shows they're full of shit.
I mean, we were very lucky because our guest on that episode, Dr. Bjorn, who is still teaching here in England, but is an American professor. He worked with the historians who were involved in the court case, so we were very lucky to talk to him.
And it was
It was a great episode.
Thank you. We're hoping to get more like that. We're busy reaching out to more and more historians.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we were talking about earlier about what people want to talk about and the way what's permitted, what's not permitted. There's a lot of things happening on Twitter right now, and a lot of historians are being very, very vocal, and I think that's giving us a good chance to bring in some people on films that allow us to talk about real issues that are quite current.
Yeah.
I mean, Wayne finished the episode brilliantly. When we said, "Have you got anything to plug?" He said, "No, you can find my books wherever you want." He says, "All I wish you implore you to do is go and punch a Nazi today."
I loved that. I was just like, yes.
Yeah. Remember, closed fist.
And also don't put your thumb in. Don't do that because you'll break your thumb. Remember, thumb on the outside.
On to happier things.
Dragons. large
Redhead Rambler
dragons.
gets to plug her stuff.
So I am currently doing a Dragon Age playthrough of all the games. We've just finished Dragon Age 2, and this week we are starting Dragon Age Inquisition. There are polls on the Bunkazilla Stomping Ground on Facebook where you can help me pick what race, class, and who I'm going to romance. Currently, I appear to be playing an elf rogue, and I'm going to be in Solivel Hell. So come and join me for that. God. Come on, please, people, go and vote for Mage. I want to play a Mage in this one. I played a Rogue in Origins. Go vote.
And for someone who's actually kind of outside the Bunkazilla stable, but we want to get them in, yay!
Yes, so I've started streaming on my channel.
Hey!
I do it kind of few and far in between. I'm probably not going to do it this week because of I have other stuff to do. But from next week, it'll probably be Thursday, 8:00. And then after that, I'm just going to try and start gaming stuff once I get my OBS sorted out. It's nearly there.
Give us a shout. I'll lend you a hand.
Yeah, I can lend you a hand with that as well.
It's just like I'm still learning how to use Discord. So yeah, it's just like I'm very old to all of this. Very late to the party, but got there in the end. But also I do reactions whenever NSP or Game Grumps release anything new, whenever that is. So that's why I'm doing the streaming in between. I do unboxings as well for Wrestle Crate and various stuff as well. So, and you can catch me on Twitter as well, where I kind of retweet times and etc. So yeah, keep an eye on my Twitter. It's the same URL.
So, and I want to give a huge thank you to our wonderful audience. A round of applause for the Peanut Gallery. You have been spectacular this evening. You've made us laugh. You've made us cry. You've pointed out how much less I know about Disney and stuff. You guys have been awesome. Thank you for joining us for this big stomp. The next big stomp. Oh, guess where the next big stomp will be? It'll be the last Wednesday of March. So yeah, join us for the next big stomp on the 31st of March. I'm going to try and have 3 new guests. If you want to be a guest, hit us up. We're always looking for new people to join in. All you got to do is put up with me and my organization. Hit us up at Bunkazilla UK on Twitter. Please join us on the Stomping Grounds on Facebook. That's where we normally announce everything. We have a Trash or Treasure tomorrow. That's every Thursday. We watch a movie together. On Saturday at 3 p.m. we have live from the Super Fortress Hardcore Genki, where you have myself, the Raggedyman, and my wonderful partner in crime and life, the Pink Apple Jam, discussing all the things we've been up to and we've seen in the majestic Super Fortress Hardcore Genki. We've got loads of stuff on bunkazilla.co.uk. We're on Twitter. We're on Twitch. Watch all our stuff. We're doing stuff every day. Make us feel happy. You know we're lovely. Everyone but us is gone. Okay, fine. Right, I'm going to head off and try and find meaning in life after having finished both seasons of Gravity Falls. Thank you, everyone, and wonderful good night. Good night. Bye.
Good night,
Bye.